Hey everyone, it's Andrew Brown, and in this follow along, we're going to take a look at S3 versioning, which is a really cool feature to ensure that you keep multiple copies of your files. So what I'm going to do here is go over to my AWS examples website as I want to programmatically work with S3 versioning because I do think that is a really good way of working with it. And I'm just going to open it up and write my commands in here, but we will also use the Cloud Shell CLI in order to execute commands. So I'm just going to open this up here. And I'm also just going to open up S3 as well so that we can kind of explore what that feature looks like when we create a new bucket. So the thing I want to do is create a new bucket. And I don't want it on this screen, so I'll get it out of the way. Hopefully it stays over here. And if we look at our creation bucket screen and we scroll on down, we'll have bucket versioning enabled right here. So this is where we can enable bucket versioning. Now, you can create a bucket and not have bucket versioning turned on, so we can turn it on retroactively. And that's what I'm going to do here. That's what I want to demonstrate. So what I'm going to do is over here in S3, I'm going to make a new section here, and we'll call this S3 versioning. Versioning, there we go. And in here, we'll just create some scripts. So I'm just kind of looking at what I was doing here before, if there's anything interesting. No, not really. So we'll just say create bucket. And what I want to do is create myself a new S3 bucket. So we know that this is AWS S3 MKDIR MK just for bucket. Let's go take a look here. I'm forgetting it's MK something, but if we go over to our CLI command documentation and we click here into reference and we make sure we're in version 2. And then we go look for AWS S3 here. We could use S3 API, but I'll just use regular S3 here. There will be a command for, MB for make bucket. Okay, so we're gonna say MB, and then we need to specify the name of the bucket. So I think here it wants a S3 bucket address. Let's go take a look here. We'll go to examples. Yeah, it's an S3 bucket address. So I'm gonna name mine S3://. And this one will be AWS S3 versioning, and then I'm gonna put my initials on the end and a couple of random numbers. I'm doing that because again, bucket names are randomized, so that's what I want to do there. So that will be my create bucket action here. Just say create bucket. And actually, I'm just going to rename this to be versioning because I'm just going to put everything in this file here, S3 versioning commands. Okay, so this will create the bucket. And so that's the first thing I want to do. Now, before we do that, we could also take a look if there are any options here to actually set them. And I don't think so. I think this one is extremely simple. I don't think we get those options there. If we were to go over to the S3 API, I wonder if they would provide those examples to us. So we'll go to our create bucket here, and we'll take a look. Because it might be separate commands. So we go here, and I'm looking for versioning. So it says version. Displays the version of this tool, so that doesn't necessarily mean it's versioning. And so I'm not necessarily seeing it here. That doesn't mean that we can't turn it on at this level. But we do see object lock enabled for bucket. So if this is here, and that is a feature of versioning, then you must be able to turn versioning here. It must be under the create bucket configuration. Okay, so probably under here is where we could specify it. Maybe. So again, don't see it, and that's totally fine because there is a separate action to turn on versioning here, I think. So if we go here, we can probably turn it on with put bucket versioning. That's what I'm thinking. Yeah, set the versioning state of the existing bucket. So the first thing I'm going to do is create a bucket without versioning. All right, so we'll do that. I'm going to go ahead and copy this, and we'll go back over to the Cloud Shell here, and I'm going to paste this in here. And notice that I'm in US East 1, so I'm assuming that this is going to create the bucket in this location as I have not specified any other address. I know this is really small, so I'm going to bump up the font here. Let's go even larger. There we go, and we'll go ahead and hit enter. So this should create ourselves a bucket. And so now we have a bucket there. I want to go ahead and explore that bucket. And we'll open it up. I just want to confirm that that bucket, wherever it created here, does not have versioning turned on. So if we go over to properties, maybe, they're always changing this on me. Notice that it is currently disabled. So what we should do is try to upload a file that doesn't have any versioning on it. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and say create a unversioned file. And so to do that, we're just going to say touch myfile.txt. Might want to place things into that file. So I think we can cat stuff into a file. I'm just going to go quickly ask ChatGPT. You can use whatever you like, but I'm just going to go here and say, how do I create an text file with some contents in it using a single bash command? I think what we can do is pipe cat to it. That's probably what it will do. But let's see if it comes up with that. And here used echo, so that's totally fine as well. So I'm going to go use that approach. We could also use touch, but that will create an empty file. And I'll just say here, hello world. And we'll take this part out. And we're not getting any syntax highlighting. It's kind of driving me crazy. So I'm just going to call this sh. There we go. That's a bit nicer. And so the idea is that we're going to create a file called myfile, and it'll say hello txt. So we'll copy this, and we'll go back over here, and it closed out our command shell or Cloud Shell. I should point out that Cloud Shell is not always available in every single region. So at one point, it was not available in CA Central 1. So if it's not available, you might need to switch regions until you're going to be in good shape. But if you opened up Cloud Shell and wasn't working, you probably already know that. So what we're doing here is we're just creating a file locally. And so if I do ls, you can see that this file exists in Cloud Shell. And now I want to copy that to our new bucket. So we'll go ahead and type in AWS S3 CP for copy. And then we're going to specify the local file. So we'll say myfile.txt. It's not autocompleting. That's totally fine. We'll do s3:// AWS S3 versioning AB 5345. Remember to use whatever yours is called there. We'll go ahead and hit enter. It's now uploaded the file. Let's see if we can see the contents of it. So we'll say AWS S3 ls, and then we'll specify the bucket again here. Versioning AB 5345. We'll hit enter. And so we can see that we have our file there. Now, if we want to know if it's versioned, we should go ahead and query that. But I'm going to just go ahead and copy this, and we're just going to keep writing these out so we have this information for later. So we'll say copy the unversioned file to S3, show the contents of the S3 bucket. You really should follow along and do all this, because then it'll become second nature to you, and you'll do so well on all of the exams, not just associates, any exam that you're taking for AWS. So show the contents of the S3 bucket. Notice that S3ls does not show versioning information. Okay, so this is not going to be very useful for us. So what we want to do is actually use list objects. We'll say AWS S3 API, and we'll say list objects. There's also a version 2, but I think I'll just use the regular one because it's totally fine. And then we need to specify the bucket. So we'll do AWS S3 versioning AB 5345. The more you work with this, the easier it becomes to remember these commands. So I think that's what it is. We'll go ahead and hit enter. And that worked. And so notice that it shows an E tag, and it's not showing any versioning information. Okay, so we'll go here. And that's fine. Get a more detailed listing. Listing of the bucket. And we'll just say, notice it does not show versioning information. All right. So there's a separate command to get versioning information. I think it's like something with versioning. We'll go take a look here and see what it's called. We'll just type version. Get bucket versioning, list object versions. That's what we're looking for. So this is going to be the command to find out if there's any object versioning on an object. So let's see what happens when we apply that to something that is not versioned yet. So we'll go ahead and just copy this over here. We don't have to write everything out by hand. And we'll say get object versions and see what happens on an unversioned object. So that's what we're going to try here. We know that our bucket here is called AWS S3 versioning. Of course, you have to replace this with whatever your bucket name is. So I'm just putting mine in here. And the name of this file is, I think, myfile.txt. So we'll go ahead and copy this. We'll bring it back over into Cloud Shell here. We'll paste it in. And of course, we could be executing this stuff over in Git pod as we configured that earlier, but I want to try to use Cloud Shell a bit. So going here and taking a look, I'm just going to hit Q because I can't see what I'm looking at here. We'll hit enter again. And so here it's showing versions, and it shows a version ID null. So notice that it doesn't error out. It actually still shows there's a version. So make note that the version ID is null. Okay, so it'll treat it like as if there's only one version. Okay, so that's kind of interesting. Just indent this so we know that's part of that part. Okay, so now that we have created a file that's not versioned, and we've inspected it to see if it has any versioning here, the next thing that we can do is we can turn on versioning. So that's what we're going to do next. So let's go back over to the CLI here, and let's go find that command. It's going to be in S3 API because, again, that's for more low-level commands. We'll type in version, and I think that it's going to be put bucket versioning. So we'll go here, and this says sets the versioning state of the existing bucket, enabled or suspended. So we'll go down to the examples, and here we have a command. So we'll go ahead and copy it. We'll bring it back over to here. We'll paste it on down below, and we'll say turn on versioning for our S3 bucket. So that's going to turn that on. I'm going to go ahead and type in AWS S3 versioning AB 5345. And it will set the status to enabled. Notice it's using the shorthand syntax. So if we really wanted to, we could pass this in as this, right? We could do this. But it's nicer when it is using that shorthand. So just understand that's JSON underneath if you ever need to manipulate that. So that looks fine. Let's go ahead and apply that. Okay. We'll go ahead and paste that in here. And we'll go ahead and hit enter. And so now versioning is turned on. It didn't throw any errors, so that's totally fine. Let's go visually inspect to see if it's there. We'll give this a refresh. And notice now that bucketing version is enabled, so it is turned on. Let's see if we can see that via the CLI. So let's say confirm bucket versioning is turned on via the CLI. I have a strong feeling it's just going to be get bucket versioning because we saw that earlier there, or at least I was carefully looking. I'm going to go ahead and just take out that. I'm going to assume it just needs a bucket. This is my best guess. We'll go down below, paste this in, hit enter, and notice that that returns it back. Great, so that can tell that that is now enabled. So we'll go ahead and copy this. So that is good. And so now let's go take a look at our versioning object and see if it actually has a version. We saw that before. Say check previous file if it has a version. That's what I want to know. So we'll go ahead and check that, and we'll go ahead and paste that in. We'll hit enter. And list operations, no, it should be fine. So it says AWS S3, my file, an error occurred when calling the list object versioning of the object, the AWS access key. Oh, right, this is not set up. I've rotated my credentials out. We need to do this over here. I was getting mixed up. And so now notice the version ID is still null. So it says version ID is null. So notice existing object, the version ID is still null. Now, to be honest, I thought it was going to go retroactively added in. I really can't remember, even though I made a bunch of slides on it. Let me just go double check, okay? All right, so I've done some digging, and notice over here I say, when you enable S3 versioning, all objects will generate a unique ID. And so I assumed it would be for existing objects as well, but it turns out there's a caveat where if it's an existing object, it's going to remain null and it's going to be applied for future versions. This is where, if you're just reading the docs, you could be missing that information because it's somewhere else or it's just really small. So it's really interesting to see that I missed that caveat, but it is acting the way that we expect it to be. And again, it's not a big deal, but it's good that we could figure that out there. So this has still version ID null. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and attempt to do an update. So we'll say, let's update the file in order to apply versioning. And we'll go up here and we'll say, we'll want to copy this. And let's figure out how can we replace the contents of a text file using bash? We'll say completely. And let's see what it says. I wonder if we can just run echo again. To completely replace it, you can use echo command operation, and it will just overwrite it. Okay, that sounds good to me. So what we'll do is go back over here. We'll say, hello, Mars, right? And we'll copy this. We'll go back over here. Make sure that file's still there. It is, great. We'll paste this in. We'll hit enter. We are going to type in cat and then my file text to confirm that it's different. It is, good. I'm going to go back over here and we're going to attempt a replacement here and hit enter. Okay, so now if we were to go and inspect this, it should have versioning. So we'll check this again. Check if file now has a version. And we'll go ahead and hit enter. And now it has two versions. So it has a version of null and this one here. So now we have a history of that. It should have two versions. Version ID. And then version null. Okay. So now the next thing I would say is that we've listed out the object versions. There's obviously delete markers. There's other things we can do with the file. So let's go ahead and update it again. Update it again. Because I'm just trying to push more versions on it. So we'll say, hello, what comes after Mars? Mars, Jupiter. So we'll do this next. We'll hit enter. And we'll go back here and we'll push this version. And then we will check to see if that one is there now. What we could do to make this a little bit nicer, hit enter, is I just want to see the version IDs, right? I don't want to see all that other stuff. So I'm just going to go here and type in hyphen query, and then I'll type in versions, and then square, and then I think version ID. I always kind of forget how to do queries, even though I do them all the time. We'll hit enter, and there we go. That worked. And then I'll just say output text. That's not great. Table. Okay, so that's a little bit better. So I'll take that and copy that. And that'll make things a lot nicer. So go here and we'll just say we'll do that. So we can see our versions that are happening. So my thought is, like, let's say we want to get the contents of this file. What's going to happen if we do that? So we'll say, I just want to get the contents of it. I don't necessarily want to download it, but I guess you have to always download it. So I think that we could probably pipe it, right? So let's go ask ChatGPT. I want to use the AWS CLI to download the contents of a text file and immediately and print it to the terminal in one command. I'm thinking what it's going to do is pipe it over to cat. Yeah, that's what I was thinking, but it has that nice little hyphen in there. So I wasn't exactly sure how we would do that, so that's good that we have that. So we'll go ahead and do this. And here we have this, so we'll copy that, paste this in here. And we'll just say my file.txt. And so I'm thinking that will get us the contents of the file. So let's see the contents of the latest file. And we'll go back over here. We'll paste this and hit enter. And so it's printing out that contents. Now we do have this file here, so I'm just going to delete this to make sure that this is actually doing what we want it to do. And we'll go ahead and hit enter. Great. So now what I want to do is get a very particular version. Let's go take a look at the AWS CLI, as I cannot remember if it's just a command on that. It probably is. So we'll go back to AWS S3. And we'll look at the copy command. We'll see if this is actually available here. We'll type in S3 here. We'll go over here. And what I'm looking for is the copy command. And can I specify a version? Version. The region to use, display the version of this tool. No. So I want to get the exact version. I don't think we can use the S3. We'll use S3 API. So say copy object. The only question is, can we pipe this the same way? Because it might return back JSON, right? And the other one returns its name. So what we really need is the bucket name and the key together. I'm going to go here and say, can you instead use S3 API? Because what it will have to do is query it and do some manipulation, right? So notice here, it says key to path, and then it's getting the ST out. Is that really going to work? This command will retrieve the specified object text file and the standard output. Yeah, I'm not 100% sure if that's going to work, but let's go ahead and take a look here and see what happens. Does that work? Oh, well, we have to obviously update this. Note that we cannot use S3CP to get specific versions of a file because it's a high-level S3 API. We'll go down here, and we'll have to copy this separately. I'm very confident that this one has a flag for getting the specific versions. But, you know, I assume this will output JSON, so I'd assume this would print out JSON and not necessarily the contents of the file. But maybe it does work, and I'm wrong. Okay, so we do get the contents of the file, but we also get this metadata here and some additional information. That's totally fine. I'm fine with having that additional stuff. There's a little bit more than I want. So here we can print out the contents of the S3 file and get the versioning with S3 API get object. And coming back over to here, it also returns the version ID. So notice that when you use get object, it gets it. For list objects, I don't think we get it, but we can take a look because we should just double check that here. I'm just hitting up till I get list objects. Somewhere in here. There we go. So if I hit this, do we get versioning now? No, we do not. So notice that still, if you want it in a list view, you're not going to get versioning, but when you use get object, you're obviously going to get it. So what I want to do here is find out what that versioning tag ID is. So it should be somewhere here. Version, nope. Version ID. And yeah, I'm not having an easy time finding it here. It should be version. Version. Okay, so it's not showing version ID. Copy object. Oh, well, this is copy, right? And there's also get. Get object. Okay. So retrieves an object from S3. So this might have the parameter we want. Version. Okay, so this one does. What did we use here? We did a get object. I don't know why I said copy object. I guess I was just getting confused. But anyway, if we go to version ID, we can specify it here. So what we'll do is say this, and then we want to get what that one is. We need to figure out what versions there are. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this again. We'll paste this in. And then we can grab a, no, that's not the command I wanted. We'll try this again. It's, oh, object versions, list object versions. No, it's this one. My clipboard doesn't sometimes copy. It's frustrating. We'll go ahead and paste, hit enter. And so we'll get a list of versions. Let's go grab this version ID. We'll go back over here. And we're going to go and paste this in our version ID. I'm going to go ahead and copy this. And I'm going to go back, paste it in. I'm going to confirm it is what I want it to be. Since copy and paste is sometimes finicky, we'll hit enter. And notice now it's saying Hello Mars, which is this version here. Let's say I want to get this one. All right, I wonder if we supply null, if it'll give us that. Because it says it's a version ID. And it does. Okay, so that is treated like a version ID. That's interesting. So now we have those. Now imagine that we want to delete. So that might be the next interesting thing that we can do. So let's go ahead and try that out. So we'll have S3 or AWS S3, AWS, AWS S3 API delete object, put bucket, and we'll grab this, paste that in, and we'll grab the key here, hit enter, and see if that deletes it. So it says it's deleted, and it returns back the version. So we'll go back over to here. Okay, let's delete an object without specifying the version ID. And so what happens here is it's going to, I think, delete the topmost version. Right? And so what we can do is now go back and list our versions. I want to get the more verbose one, so I'm going to go up to this one here, and we'll go back and we'll paste it in, because I want to see if we have those delete markers. So now it's showing this one. So we have 1, 2, 3 versions, and we have a delete marker. So for this one, it shows that the version here is CA1VBZN. Okay, so that's our delete marker. I'm going to go up here and see what the delete marker is up here. This is a completely different one here. I guess the question is, what were we getting before? So if we go up here, this is FTG_G4. So notice that this version is still on the top here, and it still shows that it has a version ID, okay? But it has a delete marker still here. So now my question is, what happens when I go and attempt to request it? Because it's still showing that the version's there. So what we'll do is we'll just go ahead and do a get object and hit enter. And notice it's returning, oh, well, that's where the version ID is that. So we'll take out the version ID because it's null, it's returning a specific one. But we shouldn't see Jupiter, we should see Mars, right? And so what's happening here, it's saying an error occurred, no such key when calling the get object operation, the specified key does not exist. So that's what we kind of expect because we deleted the object, and it's not going to grab the previous version, it's going to treat the whole thing as if it's gone. So the question is, how can we go ahead and restore back our object? Because we have a few different ways that we can do it. We can copy a previous version of the object into the same bucket. We can permanently delete the current version of the object. So, I mean, they say the second one you can do, but let's take a look here and see if there's anything else in the API that, you know, we might have missed when we were going through the lecture content. So is there anything for markers? Delete. So I'm trying to see here if like I can delete a marker or delete object versions. So no. So that's really interesting. But let's go figure out how we can restore this. So can we still get the version? Because we have the version IDs here. And yes, of course, when we fetch the object, it's not returning it there. But let's see if we can go grab a specific version. So I'm just hitting up on the keyboard here. And I'm just going to replace that version. So I'm just going to copy this here and go back. So let's attempt to fetch the object. So we'll just copy this here and make sure our documentation is all up to date here. Get object. I think this one, where are you? Get object. Not sure why it's so hard to find, but we'll go ahead and grab this one, and I'll go down here. And I'm just going to take out the version ID. Well, we'll copy this because we'll need it here in a second. So say this will return a 403 because the file is deleted. And if we were to go ahead and list all of our versioning, get all object versions, let's just say here, make note there is a delete marker. Make note that all versions are still there. They're all still there. So here what we want to do is we want to see if we can fetch a very specific version, the one that we actually deleted. So we'll go back over here, and the one that we deleted is this top one. So I'm going to grab this one here, and we'll go back, and we'll paste this in here. So say, let's see if we can get the previous version, which we technically deleted. Okay, so go ahead and we'll copy this. And we'll see if we can get its contents. Just as a sanity check, I just want to make sure there's no files there. Good. I don't remember deleting it, but it's not there. And so notice we're still getting Hello Jupiter. So it's still there, but we want to bring it back. So the way we're going to do that is to use the copy command. So I'm going to go here. Now the copy command didn't necessarily have the version flag. Where we said copy object. So we say version ID. So it doesn't actually have that there. So the question is, how are we going to copy that specific version when we can't use copy object? Of course, we can use get object, which we did. And I suppose what we'd have to do is download it and then upload it again. So let's bring back the last version by downloading it and re-uploading it. AKA copy it back. Because that's really the only way we're going to be able to do that. So we're saying get object here. And then we'll say put object. And we'll not specify the version. Say copy, and we'll hit enter. We'll hit enter. And it says error, the following commands are required out file. Since when? I mean, we didn't use it before. Did we not? We've been using get object this entire time, right? Get object bucket, version ID, right? Key. Oh, I guess here it usually specifies the file. Okay, so the file contents, that makes sense. So basically, we're downloading the file, but here we said export the file contents here. That makes total sense now. So we can go here and say myfile.txt. And we'll paste this again, hit enter. And I'm pasting this in the wrong thing. We're supposed to do this in Cloud Shell, no problem. We'll go ahead and hit paste, enter. And so now we'll do ls. We'll check the contents of that file. It's there, great. We'll go back over here. We're going to copy this command, which is going to put it back up there. Great. And now the next thing we want to do is we want to look at the versioning again. So let's check the versioning. The question is that delete marker still there? Probably is. So say AWS S3 list object versions. That's for the table. I want the full version of it without, well, we don't want a table on this. So we'll grab this again. We'll say, let's check the versions again. So we'll go ahead and copy this. And when you are working in the cloud, it's really useful to do this in documents so you have all your steps, because often you're going back, as you see, I'm going back constantly looking for that stuff. So we have this version here, this previous version there. So we have 4. Notice the delete marker is still there. So I guess the way it must know the order of these things is based on the last modified date. But yeah, so we're really getting somewhere here with all this stuff. There's another feature to S3 versioning, which is obviously object locking. So we should take a look at that. We should also look at unversioned files. So what we'll want to do is turn on multi-factor authentication. As you can see here, we can just enable it. Actually, we can't enable it in here. We have to do it through the CLI. So let's go ahead and do that. I believe that we do that through the bucket versioning. So just as we did bucket versioning before, there's an option for it. So let's go look for put bucket versioning, because it's not an isolate feature, it's just a feature of this one here. In order to enable MFA delete, you must be the bucket owner. If you're the bucket owner and want to enable MFA delete, the bucket versioning configuration, etc., etc., etc. Okay, great. So go down examples, and then this one should show how to turn it on. Now this one's saying MFA serial 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, which is great. So our serial number for our MFA. So yeah, I guess the question is, how are we going to set this up? Because I'm just trying to think here if I can just use the app on my phone. So give me 2 seconds, okay? All right, some basic research, and it looks like what we need to do is add a MFA device to our user, and then it'll produce that serial. So that's where that's coming from. What we'll do is go ahead and look up users. And I believe it's an IAM users, because that's where I remember attaching MFA devices. I'm right now Andrew Brown, so we'll go into here. Technically, I'm AWS examples, but that's not what I'm logged in as right now. So what we'll do is we will go take a look at those devices. I assume we're supposed to do it under a user, security credentials, MFA. We'll sign an MFA device. And so we have a few options. If you're looking this up somewhere else, it might show it in a, the screenshots will look different, obviously. But I'm looking for my phone. I just had it. Give me 2 seconds. I got to find my phone. There it is. Okay, so here we have the Authenticator app. And there's a lot of apps out there. Microsoft has one. So Microsoft Authenticator. I don't know if that's what it's called. Microsoft's is actually really, really good. Google has one called Google Authenticator. There's one called Authy. I like Authy. I find it the easiest to use. So that's the one I'm using on my phone. You have to install something and make a choice. It's up to you. But what I'm going to do is just put something in here. So I'm going to say Authy. I mean, that's what it is, Authy. So I'll go ahead and this is say Andrew, or AB for Andrew Brown. We'll go ahead and hit next. It doesn't like the name, so I'll give it a hyphen. We'll give it a next. And so it says install compatible applications such as Google Authenticator, Duo Mobile, Authy, and they don't list Microsoft's, even though Microsoft's is really good. So it says open your Authenticator, show your QR code. I'm doing that right now. And somewhere in my app here, once I get into it, there should be a place to add it. So I'll say add account, scan the QR code. I'm doing this all off screen. You can't see me do this. And I'm saying save to my phone. And so now what I need to do is fill in the consecutive numbers. So right now it says 832360, and I'm waiting for it to turn over to the next token. So you're not entering this in twice, you're entering consecutive codes in. It's very easy to mess that up. And I'm just waiting and waiting and waiting. There we go. So 141500. We'll go ahead and hit add MFA. It should hopefully work. And it looks like I've added that MFA. And I imagine it's supposed to have a serial number here, right? So I have this now added, and I need to add a serial number. So let me figure that out next, okay? All right, so I just want to show you that I'm not crazy, that there's a reason why I'm having a hard time doing this, because when you go to the docs, they don't really tell you in the example how you can utilize it with the virtual MFA. Now, I know that you can do it, but notice it just shows serial 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If there is more information, maybe it's in here. Like, it doesn't really tell you, but if we even look at the this here, the examples, we go down below, just shows you serial. Not really useful. However, if we go to repos, people are showing that you can turn it on and specify this kind of thing over here to say, hey, turn on MFA attached to a user's account, right? So notice here it says ARN, AWS IAM, the account number, MFA, root account, MFA device, and then it has pass. And so I'm assuming is the 6-digit example code that's generated from the MFA device. Okay, great. So what I'm thinking we need to do is grab this example. This is going to be different for you than it is for me, right? And because this is such a weird, undocumented thing, I'm just going to go ahead and copy this. Okay. So we'll turn on MFA. Create an MFA. Okay, so just going to kind of expand this so I can see what I'm doing. It's a little bit too much going on for me. And we know this is our bucket here. And we want to enable MFA. This is already enabled, so that's totally fine. And we're going to go here. And so we need this kind of ARN. So I know that we can get our account ID right here. And we'll paste this in here. The next thing is it says root account MFA device. I don't know if that's what it's supposed to be, but let's go back over to IAM and see what we have. So it has this. We could actually just copy this identifier. And I'm hoping that this just works. So paste that on in here. Okay. And then on my phone, there's those numbers that are changing. It's those 6 numbers you keep on seeing. So I'm going to go here. And I have to be really quick with this because I only have a few seconds. So what I'll do, I'm going to wait till it counts down to 30 seconds and enter it in so I'm not so stressed out trying to copy and paste it over. 9 seconds, 8 seconds, 7 seconds, 6 seconds. I know you can't see this, but it's happening. And there we go. So we have 660226. Great. I'm going to go ahead and copy this, and I'm going to try to go as quick as I can over to here, and I'm going to paste in this multi-line command, and we'll say paste. Looks correct to me, just double checking. We'll hit enter. And did it turn on? I don't know. We'll go back here and check the versioning. Properties. Still disabled. I must have copied this wrong. Put bucket versioning. That's what I did. And you know what? It took so long that I now have a new one. So I'll go here and try another one. So we'll say 650-319. I'm going to try this again. Copy. Right click. Paste. Double check. 7 seconds. Enter. Or maybe I didn't go quick enough last time. When calling bucket versioning operation, dev pay and MFA are mutually exclusive authorization methods. What? What are they talking about there? I have no idea what they're saying there. Let's go double check here. Dev pay. Let's ask ChatGPT. So here, what we're getting, we're saying, to resolve this issue, you should check the AWS CLI configuration and ensure that you are not unintentionally using both dev pay and MFA. What is dev pay? Okay. What is dev pay for S3? Is that where someone else pays? Amazon Dev Pay is a simple to use online billing account management service. Supports applications built on Amazon S3 and AC2 by allowing you to resell applications built on one of those applications. I'm definitely not doing that, so I'm not sure what they're talking about there. So maybe what I'll do here, I'll just take out status enabled, and let's see if we can just do this, because we don't need to flip that twice, right? I'm just going to simplify this and make this one line. And I'm going to try this again. So 071821. I'm not going to be quick enough. I'll have to try this again. Just waiting a few seconds here. Okay, 205005. We'll copy this. And we'll go back over here. We're going to go ahead and paste this in. We'll hit enter. What is it talking about? Give me a moment. I'll be back here in a moment, all right? All right, so I remember in our lecture content that we did say that it had to be done via the root account, but it's interesting to see that that's not what it returns back. So Stack Overflow is suggesting the error response typically gets returned when API cannot perform the MFA delete task due to the request being made with non-root credentials. The only way to turn on MFA delete is to use credentials from the user of the root account. So that's okay. Only from the root account. Can you generate out access credentials from the root account? I don't think so. At least I don't remember you being able to. So that's fine. I can go log in as the root account. We'll take a look here. But I guess my confusion is like, if I'm root account, how do I have access keys? Because I thought that they disabled that. Also, I'm thinking of another cloud, which is totally possible. So what I'm going to do is sign out here, and I'm going to attempt to log in again, and this time as the root user. So I'm going to go here and sign in as root. I'm going to go grab that information and let me fill it in. Just give me just a moment here. All right, we'll attempt to log in here. And we'll make our way over to IAM. And we'll go to root has no active access keys. Okay, so I guess we can produce access keys. I just couldn't remember at one point if, well, can we? Where do we get our access keys? Using access keys attached to IAM user instead of the root user. Okay, but we have to use access keys here. Now, of course, we don't. We can just open up Cloud Shell, which is fine. But I'm just curious as to where we would generate them out if we had to. Where? Account settings? Policy password, no. STS, no. Well, okay, I'm not exactly sure where we are supposed to generate them out at the root user. That's okay, we don't need to anyway. We'll just open up Cloud Shell. And what I'm going to do here, I'm going to first make sure I'm in the same region. I am, that's good. Cloud Shell is migrated to Amazon 2023. That sounds great. And we'll go back over here and we'll try this again, and I'll have to be like super quick about it. So I have to log in again. And I'm going to see if I can show this on the screen here, because I am here, right? So I can show you, like, it's generating out the codes, right? I'm using Authy, so that's what I'm trying to do right here, okay? We'll get off screen. So, yeah, anyway, let's go get this code in here. So this one, I have to be, again, really quick. Super hard to multitask here while holding a phone. And we will do 539. No, I'm not going to make it in time. I'll have to wait again. Just give it a moment here. 8 seconds, 7 seconds, 6 seconds, 5 seconds, 4 seconds. Come on, let's do it. Here we go. 483613. Great. I'm going to copy this as quick as I can. Bring it over here. Paste it in. Enter. And it still doesn't work. Okay. What else do you want from me? I did what you asked. 483613. 483613. Now, I don't have that other flag in there. I wonder if that matters. So I'm going to go back up to wherever that was. I'm going to copy paste this. I'm going to enter in the new code. I gotta, again, wait for the seconds to elapse again to enter the next one. And we will do 423-626. And I have to copy it as quick as I can, bring it over here, paste it in, hit enter. Still doesn't work. What do you want from me? I'm doing what you told me to do. Let me read a little bit more, okay? All right, so this is what I'm thinking. Because it says root account MFA device. I wonder if we can attach it to the root account, and maybe the one on that user is totally useless. So what I'm going to do, and again, I'm logged in as root. You can tell because it doesn't show, it just shows development up here, but which is the name of this account. I'm going to close this out for a second. I'm going to go back over here. I'm going to go to security credentials. I'm going to remove this MFA, remove it, because that clearly isn't working. And somewhere in here, I bet I can set MFA on this root account. Now, of course, we can do it because we should be able to in account settings somewhere here. Where the heck is it? Dashboard, add MFA. I can add it right here. Let's click it there. So it takes me to security credentials. Let's go back over here. So I'm looking on the left-hand side. I'm trying to find security credentials. Security credentials. Why doesn't it show up here anywhere? So I guess my question is, like, once I add it, can I get back to it? So that's something I'm not 100% sure about, but we'll click that. There used to be a link. The reason I'm so confused is there used to be a link to get to it, and they've changed it. So now we're going to add the MFA device to the root account. So I'm going to say auth, and I'm going to use the Authenticator app. I guess since I do have a screen, I can show you what's happening here if you really want to see. So I'm going in here to my Auth account. Okay, so here I'm in Auth, right? And in the top right corner, there's those 3 ellipses. So I click the 3 ellipses. I'm going to add an account, right? And it says scan the QR code. So I'm going to click that. And in here, I'm going to go next. Click the code. I'm scanning the code. And it picked it up. It wants to add it, so I go ahead and add it. And now I have this stuff here, okay? So I'm going to have to enter in the sequence. So I have 137929, hit tab, waiting for the next number here. There we go, 361392. We'll hit add MFA. And so now what I'm thinking is that this one is at the root level and it's going to give us less problems. That is my guess. Nobody's telling me that. So what I'll do is I'll copy this and we'll go back to our code over here. And I'm going to paste this here. And now I need the next digits for this. This one is, I'm going to go quick. 975. Copy this entire line. Copy, right click, open IAM. I don't even have it open, darn it. Paste it in as quick as I can. Come on, paste it in, paste it in. Let's go, let's go. And it still doesn't work. What the heck is going on? Okay, let me do some more investigation. All right, so this is the same thing we're writing here. And the next one says, I got the same error when attempting to perform this using the AWS Cloud Shell. Although I was using the root user and confirmed I was root using the Cloud Shell, the same command worked when run from the local CLI. Okay, so that sounds like that's part of our issue. If this is going to maybe resolve it, I'm going to have to get those darn access keys. But the question is, where the heck are they? So that's my next thing I have to find out. So I'll be back here when I find it, okay? All right, okay. So those security credentials, they're right up here in the top right corner, and we go here. That is so frustrating that it's up there and not here on the left-hand side, but okay, let's go over here. And I mean, I guess that makes sense. Like if you're in the existing user, that is the way you'd access it for any of them, but I totally forgot that that's up there. And now we're on here and we can produce access keys. Now it doesn't like it when you produce access keys, but I'm going to do that anyway because I need this to work. And we're going to have to do this in Gitpod. I'm going to do this in a separate local developer environment. I am generating out access keys. We need to do this for the root account. At least I think we have to. Of course, do not share these keys with anybody. I'm going to rotate them out after this video. Your access keys should be kept secret, okay? So I'm going to go here and paste this here. And then I'm going to go here and paste this here. All right, the next thing I want to do is I need to figure out what those access key environment variables are, access key envars. And we'll go over here. And I'm just going to grab this as an example. I'm only setting these temporarily in my Gitpod environment. If you're using a local developer environment, these will persist. You can also use profiles in AWS credentials. I can't use them here because profiles do not work in Gitpod, but credential files are really, really cool to use. So what we'll do is just copy this and paste here, copy this and paste here. This is in US East 1, so I'm just going to default this to US East 1. I'm going to also wrap these in double quotations because if there's anything funny in here, it might break the, or like cut off part of it and then not work. We'll go ahead and copy this. I'm going to go ahead and paste this on down below. I'm going to do AWS STS get caller identity. And it says I'm typing it wrong, so I'll go hit enter. There's a, we covered this somewhere, but there's an environment variable you can set to enter that mode, and then it will autocomplete what you're writing. So we'll say AWS S3 or STS get caller identity. I have a hard time spelling the word identity. That's the problem there. And so this is saying that I'm root. So I'm confirmed that this is now hooked up. So that is good. We want to attempt this command again. I do not want this stuff to get saved in here. So I'm deleting this out and saving this file. Do not commit that stuff if you can. And so now what I need to do is go ahead and attempt to enable this again. So I need to get this code here. So 134.199 copy, and I'm pasting it down below here this time, and it worked. So the question is, would it have worked without a root user if it was still here? I don't know. It is suggested you have to use root user, so whatever, it did work, because in one case it said the bucket owner, and then the other case it said the root user. Let's just assume it's the root user, but let's go confirm that MFA delete is turned on. So we'll go back over to our bucket, and let's just go here back to our S3 bucket here. And we'll go to buckets. The bucket was called this one, and we will confirm that MFA delete is turned on, which is under properties maybe. Yeah, so it is turned on now. So if that's turned on, we should not be able to delete buckets, right? So a few things here is you need to create so you need to attach MFA to root user. You will need to generate out root credentials. You cannot use Cloud Shell. It's so bizarre that you can't use Cloud Shell for that one case, but hey, now we know. So after this, we were going to say, let's try and delete our object. So we have it somewhere here, up here. Great. I'm going to go and paste this down below. And we'll undo here. I'm going to do this via Cloud Shell. No, I guess we don't have to. This is, you cannot delete this object unless you are root user, is basically what it's supposed to be. So if we copy and paste this right now, we use that, it's going to work. But what I want to do is I want to go attempt to delete it in here. Let's go ahead and try that. I'm going to say delete. We'll say delete object. And it worked. And the problem is that I'm the root user, right? So of course I can delete that. So that's not a really good example. So I'm going to go back there and restore this. So let's go ahead and do that by grabbing a line here, up here. Let's bring back the object. So we will copy this here, hit enter, and then I'm going to go here and paste it back. I'm going to go ahead and delete this file, delete permanently. And as a sanity check, I want to list out the objects. I just want to make sure somehow I didn't delete everything. Okay, so our versions are still there. We should now have 2 delete markers. We do, great. And we'll go back over to here and refresh. The only way we're going to be able to test this out is I'm going to have to log back into that other account. So I'm going to sign out. And I'm going to sign back in. This one's going to be developers, ExamPro. Andrew Brown. I got to go grab my password. Give me a moment to grab that here. And we'll grab that here. All right, and so now we'll go ahead and try to delete it from here. We could probably just use the CLI to find out, or the Cloud Shell. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and use the Cloud Shell here. That's fine. Ignore. Just type clear so I can see what I'm doing. Let's go ahead and attempt to delete this. From our non-root user. And we'll go ahead and paste this in here and hit enter. Whoops. Paste. Paste. It is not pasting. Right click, copy. Right click, paste. There we go. Hit enter. And it says that it deleted the marker. Okay. So maybe it can delete markers. It just can't delete the original object. So let's go back to our versioning here. Say S3. And we'll take a look. And we will go into here. And the object is gone. So what does that mean when it says MFA delete? Are we talking about not able to delete versions or not able to delete the object completely? So just give me a moment, okay? All right, so I think there's a caveat we missed, which is permanent deleting objects. So if we delete the top level object, we cover this in the lecture content, but if we want to permanent delete a specific version, we have to specify that version and it'll get rid of it forever. Right? So there is still stuff there, its version, we just don't see it. So we can add a delete marker, but we're not actually permanently deleting versions. So what we can do is attempt to do that. So let's do that. So we'll say, this will actually delete, this will create a delete marker. It doesn't actually delete objects, so it's not going to trigger MFA delete, right? So let's go ahead and now specify a version that we want to delete. So if we go here and say, let's delete this version, I assume it has the same flag version ID here. Let's specify a version to permanently delete. What I want to do is I want to trigger that. I want to trigger that permanently, right? So we'll go ahead and copy this, and we'll go ahead and paste it in. Hit enter. It says MFA authentication must be used for this request. Now, I should specify that down here, this is the root user, and I tried to delete it with the root user, and it failed. If I tried to do it in here, it should fail as well, right? Because it's attempting to permanently delete. So here it says MFA authentication must be used for this request, which is totally fine. But the question is, can I do this if I'm not the root user and I use MFA? I mean, I assume I have to. So there's probably like a flag to add the MFA key in here. So what we'll do is we'll go back over to our API calls, and we'll go up, all the way up, all the way up, and we'll go to S3 API, I'm going to type in delete object here. And what I'm looking for here is the MFA. So let's type in MFA. Okay, and I'm going to assume we just supply the code here. So it says the concatenation of the authentication device's serial number, space, and the value that is displayed on your authentication device required to permanently delete the device. Now, the serial is probably the same thing that we used before. So if we go back over to here, I'm going to just go here and say MFA, and we'll grab the same thing, and the code's going to just be different. All right. So go here, and now I just need to make sure I enter in the latest code, and hopefully this will work. So it says 606973. So I'm going to try this first over here, and I don't expect this to work here because this isn't the root user. It's not their MFA device. So it still complains, right? That's totally fine. And also, that's never worked really before with MFA, but let's try it over here in Cloud Shell. And it was able to delete the object, and it returns back the version. The question is that object permanently gone? That's what we want to go find out here. So if we go and hit up, and we list out our versions here, this is the version QX. Notice that it is completely gone. And 1, 2, 3. Did it add another delete marker? I'm not sure. But we'll go back over here and we'll give this a refresh. Okay. Let's keep trying to delete some here. Because I want to know, is it going to add another delete marker if we attempt to delete? I guess we don't have to do that with MFA delete. So I think MFA delete is now satisfied. So what I'm going to do is go over to our bucket version, try to turn this off. Notice we cannot turn it off from here. We have to use the CLI. So I'm going to go back over here and notice it removes the version permanently. Okay, that's not how you spell permanently, probably not, but I'm going to go down here. We'll say turn off MFA. I imagine the process is going to be very similar. If we go here, bring this down, and we probably just say disabled. And at the same time, I wouldn't mind turning off versioning, because I kind of feel like we're done here. So I'm just going to say disabled as well. Enable, disabled, disabled. I think this has to be suspended. And that's what I'm going to do here. So now I have 721.191, and we'll copy this. We'll hit X. We'll paste this in. We'll hit Enter. There is this big weird space in the front of it, so I'll just take that out. I'm going to try to get this in as quick as I can. The serial number MFA code is not valid. It's because it might have changed while I was working with this, or I might have entered it incorrectly. So say 785.772. We'll copy this. I'll go ahead and paste this in again, hit Enter. And it looks like that's both been turned off. We'll go back over here. We'll refresh this page here. And now it's suspended and it's disabled. So those two things have now changed. So the next question is, now that versioning is turned off, what do objects look like? So turn off MFA and versioning. Now let's go take a look at our objects. So if we go here and say list object versions, let's look at our object versions. It should probably look the same, right? It's just going to be not happening anymore. So if we hit Enter down here, notice we still have our versions. Everything's still intact, right? But what's going to happen if we push a new version here? So that's the question. I'm going to do this over here via the CLI. So we'll go ahead and open this up. I'm just going to clear this out. And we're going to go back to our code here. Bring this down here. Let's push a new or an updated object on suspended versioning. Okay. And we'll go up here. And I'm looking for some code where we might have changed this before. Here we go. Here's an example. And so we'll go down here. And I just want to say, hello, Jupiter, Saturn. I will say, hello, Saturn. I'm going to just apply this here. And now I want to see what it looks like when we use this information here and hit enter. Okay, and so we still have history, 1, 2, 3, 4. Question is, did it add that as a version? Notice the version is now null, right? Okay, so the latest one is null. If we were to push it again, hello Saturn, hello Neptune, would it add another version or would it always just be the last one? So we go ahead and do this. And we'll go ahead and try this again. Hit enter. Okay, and still null. So notice that it's just stacking on the last one. So yeah, that's interesting. Now the next question is, can we delete this bucket? So the thing is, when you have versioning on, I'm not sure if it'll let us delete the bucket. I'm pretty sure it doesn't let us. Let's go ahead and see what happens. Now we can delete this. It won't actually delete the object. It will delete just that file there. But what we'll do is we'll go over to buckets here. And we'll see if we can delete it. So I want to say delete this bucket. Buckets must be empty, so we'll empty it. And we'll attempt this here. So we'll say permanently delete to empty the bucket. So it says we have emptied the bucket. Let's see if we can actually delete the bucket now. And we'll go back over to our listing. Buckets. Delete. Delete bucket. And our bucket is now gone. Now, I don't know why I thought that you can't delete a bucket if it's versioned. But I mean, hey, we got rid of it, so we're in good shape. And we've done a lot with S3 versioning. So you can see that there's a few nuances there, like Cloud Shell and the root user. And you really do have to double, triple check to make sure you understand how it works. Yeah, hopefully that is really clear. This was a long one, but S3 versioning is super important. But yeah, there you go.